Hey everyone, welcome to QuinniePie's tiny but mighty corner. Thank you for clicking in and giving this story a listen. Your support seriously boosts my energy like instant plus 100 motivation. This channel is still a baby, so if you vibe with the story, please hit subscribe, drop a like, and leave a cute little comment to keep me inspired to create more. Big thanks and big love to you all. Enjoy the story. Kai was 25 years old, but he was far from being a simple painter. People said his brushstrokes held a soul, that his art could breathe life into inanimate things. That was the reason for his fame. When he painted a single blooming flower, viewers swore they could catch its scent. When he painted a pair of eyes, people felt utterly pierced by that gaze. This talent, however, was occasionally a curse. It forced him to live perpetually between two worlds, the tangible reality and the things that had never existed. Memories that weren't his own, constantly flickering within his artworks. His latest quest for inspiration brought him to a forgotten, ancient district. Through the persistent drizzle, Kai stumbled into an old, musty, damp bookstore. Among hundreds of faded tomes, one book with a dark leather cover, almost black, immediately captured his attention. The title was deeply etched, like it was written in dried blood, The Cardinal's Chronicle. The cover was a faint sketch of a veiled historical world, and specifically, a small, rectangular, crimson-purple token glowed faintly at the bottom corner. Drawn in like a magnet, Kai reached out and touched it. His entire body trembled, a cold electric current shot down his spine. Yet his heart hammered a frantic rhythm, as if it had been waiting for this moment for an eternity. He bought the book, almost forgetting the original purpose of his journey. This thing is calling my name, Kai whispered to himself, his voice shaking. That night, in his attic apartment, steeped in the smell of turpentine and canvas, Kai fell asleep, his head resting beside the strange book. He dreamed. The dream was not just images, it was sound, scent, and profound agony. He saw a man dressed in a scarlet robe embroidered with gold thread. His face was sharp and angular, his eyes piercingly cold, but they harbored an abyss of deep loneliness. It was an overbearing, oppressive kind of beauty, a figure that felt instantly etched onto Kai's heart. That man was getting married. The entire general's hall was filled with red lanterns. But the joy was short-lived. Abruptly, the crimson-purple light flared up, accompanied by heart-rending screams and the overwhelming stench of fresh blood. The scene shattered, tearing apart like a ripped canvas, leaving only the cold, tragic hue of crimson-purple that consumed the night sky. Kai woke with a gasp. Drenched in sweat, the sense of devastating loss felt more real than his own memories. The book beside him had opened itself, and the crimson-purple token had fallen out of the cover. It was ice-cold when Kai picked it up, yet it radiated an irresistible, potent pull. Haunted by the image of the man in the cardinal robe, Kai became obsessed. Working like a madman, he used the finest silks and dyes to meticulously recreate the exact ceremonial garment he had seen in his dream. Every single stitch was a silent vow, an unconscious acceptance of his destiny. The next day, Kai stood before the mirror, his face pale. He donned the scarlet robe, the soft silk fabric felt heavy, like a profound burden of fate. He pinned the crimson-purple token onto the lapel over his heart. The instant Kai saw himself dressed in the garment of tragedy, a feeling of deep familiarity and crushing pain overwhelmed him. And then, crack! The crimson-purple light was no longer faint. It erupted violently, engulfing the entire studio. Kai heard the whistling wind, the frantic drumbeats, and a distant voice calling out, "Receive the bride. Quickly, usher the bride into the manor." The world spun. Kai felt himself being sucked into a spatial vortex. His body stretched taut, and then, a dead silence. When he awoke, Kai found himself lying inside a vibrant red sedan chair, surrounded by the deafening clang of gongs and drums. A strong, ancient scent permeated the air. He was wearing the bride's scarlet gown, embroidered with phoenixes, his head covered by a deep red veil. The crimson-purple token had vanished, replaced by a hairpin of the same color. Kai, the modern-day artist, had been sucked into the ancient world of Zhaoyang, becoming the bride in the wedding ceremony of General Lucien. Fate, freshly painted, had begun its cycle anew. The sedan chair halted, the clang of gongs and drums ceased abruptly, leaving a pressure-filled silence, like the moment before a storm hits. Kai, bound by the heavy bridal attire, felt suffocated. He wanted to use English or some modern slang to reassure himself. but only muffled sounds escaped his throat. He stepped down from the sedan. The painter's every sense operated at full capacity. The chilling, stern blend of incense and gunpowder permeated the air, and though red lanterns were densely hung, their light was insufficient to dispel the profound darkness looming within the general's manor. Kai heard a deep, cold, and authoritative voice ring out from the front. "Commence the ceremony." It was Lucien. Lucien did not turn to look at him. This frigidity was not arrogance, but a thick, impenetrable defensive wall. Lucien was tall, dressed in solemn official robes. His face, though he was no longer wearing the scarlet attire, was just as beautiful and overbearing as the image that had haunted Kai. That controlled, patriarchal beauty sent a shiver down Kai's spine, yet it also stimulated his artist's instinct to decipher this man. The ceremony concluded. Kai was led into the bridal chamber. The room was vast and luxurious but terrifyingly silent, devoid of any warmth typical of a wedding day. A maid entered and carefully lifted the veil from his head. Kai gazed into the ancient bronze mirror. The mirror was hazy, reflecting a face that was both strange and familiar. He ran his hand across the intricate costume, feeling a sense of horror. Lucien believed he was Lyra, which confirmed that an entire court had had its memories rewritten by the book. They had forgotten the real Lyra and accepted this substitute as a self-evident truth. Lucien walked in, without the scent of alcohol, only fatigue and tension radiating from him. He looked at Kai with an air of cold control and detachment. Entirely devoid of affection. "Lyra," Lucien began, his voice deep and hoarse, carrying impatience, "you do not need to fulfill your marital duties immediately. I married you to complete my obligation to the clan. You need only focus on performing the duties of a general's madam, and that is enough." Lucien moved toward the window. Avoiding looking at Kai, he unclasped the long sword from his hip. The dry clang of metal echoed in the room. Kai realized. Lucien was not marrying a person, he was marrying a statue representing duty. Kai, with the rebellious instinct of a modern man, could not endure this arranged setup. He spoke in a decisive tone, completely unlike the voice of the fragile Lady Lyra. "The general seems displeased on his wedding day. Does the general regret this?" Lucien froze. He spun around, his eyes blazing with fury and astonishment. This action and tone were drastically different from the Lyra he remembered. "You are overstepping your boundaries." "Madam," Lucien warned, his voice dangerously low. "I do not regret it. My memories of this marriage are genuine and unshakable. Do not try to act mysterious." Amidst the anger, Kai recognized that Lucien was desperately trying to conceal a past wound that had nothing to do with Lyra. He knew, because that very wound had manifested in his own artwork back in the modern world. Before Lucien could step out of the room, Kai posed a question loaded with tragic, prophetic weight. "A memory can be real, but can a soul be false? General, are you living with a lost piece of your soul?" Lucien was utterly stunned. He stared at Kai, as if trying to rip through the skin and flesh to see the underlying truth. But he chose evasion. Lucien slammed the door shut, leaving Kai in the dark and the cold silence. Kai approached the bronze mirror. He touched the crimson-purple hairpin. Instantly, the pin vibrated like an overloaded battery. This time, it wasn't just an image. Kai sensed Lyra's extreme terror and her subsequent release in the modern world. Through the mirror, Kai saw more than just Lyra. He saw a text scrolling past like a coded message. Lyra cast the gem, begging for freedom from Lucien. The chronicle automatically rewrites. The artist Kai substitutes. The tragic love must be fulfilled. He was horrified. The book was a governing law, and he was the substituted variable in the equation. Lyra had escaped, and Kai had been pulled in to ensure this cycle of tragic reincarnation remained unbroken. In the vast general's manor, if Lucien was the perfectly deceived, then Jasper was the one tortured by the truth. Jasper, 24 years old, was the trusted aide, confidant, and secret admirer of the true Miss Lyra. He was the only person whose memory the book's magic could not erase. He clearly remembered the night the crimson-purple light flared, the night Lyra was forced to marry Lucien, the night she, in her desperation, threw the fateful jewel into the river before vanishing. Now, watching the Madame Lyra walk through the manor, Jasper felt his heart being pierced by 1,000 needles. This Madame was not her. The smallest details betrayed Kai. Lyra always preferred light, fragrant tea, whereas the Madame secretly drank a strange, bitter liquid, the instant coffee Kai had carried with him. Lyra did not know how to ride a horse, but Kai moved around the garden with the unconscious agility of someone familiar with open spaces. Lyra had clumsy penmanship, while the madam's handwriting was surprisingly strong and unrestrained. Most notably, the eyes. Kai's gaze lacked the shyness of a noblewoman, it held the cold, sharp observation of an artist. An outsider, Jasper began to act. He secretly investigated, trying to find evidence that the madam was an impersonating demon or part of a court conspiracy. One afternoon, Jasper caught sight of Kai standing by a dry well in a corner of the garden. Kai, unaware of Jasper's presence, was staring intently at a small item, a modern cigarette butt that he had inadvertently dropped from the pocket of the bridal attire. He was mourning his old world. Jasper approached, his voice laced with suspicion and pain. "What is the madam looking at? Are you reminiscing about the place where the demon was imprisoned?" Kai turned around, startled. He saw Jasper, a young man with a scholarly appearance, but whose eyes were filled with uncontrollable resentment. "What are you saying, Jasper?" Kai tried to maintain Lyra's tone. "My lady Lyra would never stand still, never observe the world with such an analytical eye." Jasper suppressed his fury. "And my lady Lyra does not know how to open a locked door with just a piece of copper wire, as you did this morning. You are not her. Who are you, and what is your purpose here?" Kai realized he had met the key holder to the truth. All efforts at pretense were meaningless before the eyes of true love. He did not try to deny it. Instead, Kai asked a question that stunned Jasper. "Do you remember a jade gem?" "The gem my father left behind," Jasper whispered, his eyes wide. "The gem that carried the blessing. Give it to the one you truly love." It vanished the night the crimson-purple light erupted. Kai nodded, pointing to his own crimson-purple hairpin. "That gem, it is this object now. It is the conduit, and I am the replacement. I was drawn in here by a book to complete a cycle of tragic reincarnation that was broken." Jasper looked at Kai, then at the hairpin. He did not believe this tale of spatial travel, but the genuine despair in Kai's voice made him waver. He realized Kai was not a demon, but a victim of some cosmic power. The confrontation ended in a painful acceptance. Jasper, out of his profound love for Lyra, decided to secretly observe and protect Kai, because only Kai, the one holding the conduit, stood a chance of finding his beloved Lyra again. His enemy was not Kai, but the destiny that had rewritten everything. After the silent confrontation with Jasper, Kai had temporarily found a mental anchor in this strange world. However, to ensure his survival and avoid suspicion from Lucien, he had to implement a strategy of knowing the enemy. And for an artist, the best way to know a subject is to sketch and decipher them. Kai began his journey of artifying his ironic marriage. He turned the somber bridal chamber into a secret studio. He used clean charcoal from the fireplace and old writing paper to sketch Lucien. Kai mused, "This honorary husband is truly a living sculpture. But he's been programmed incorrectly." Lucien, under Kai's sharp observation, was the perfect embodiment of boxed-up responsibility and patriarchy. He was handsome, but that beauty was so strictly solemn it was irritating, as if all joyous emotion had been banned from his face. Kai sketched him while reading military texts, sharp lines, a furrowed brow as if solving an incredibly difficult problem. He was a walking monolith, absolutely loyal to his general title and the so-called mandate of heaven. Kai whispered to the sketch, "Buddy, do you even know you're living such a stressful life? Relax, the woman you married managed to escape. Why are you still clinging to this heap of responsibility?" The irony of fate struck him as darkly funny. One night, Lucien unexpectedly walked into the room to retrieve a military file, a rare occurrence. And Kai didn't have time to hide the sketchbook under his pillow. Lucien saw it. They were not embroideries, nor the sentimental ink paintings that a Lady Lyra should be working on, but over 10 charcoal sketches of Lucien himself, captured in every serious angle. Lucien froze, the astonishment on his face appearing like a crack on a thick sheet of ice. "What are you drawing, Lyra?" Lucien's voice was cold and suspicious. Kai tried to steady himself, maintaining the gentle tone of the Lyra in Lucien's memory. "Your humble wife is merely documenting the general's imposing spirit and heroic bearing." Lucien was utterly unmoved. He approached, picking up the sketch where Kai had drawn him frowning, holding a military text, with a symbolic charcoal hat of responsibility sketched above his head. "Documenting spirit? You are wasting paper." And wasting your time, Lucien said, his tone carrying blatant contempt. A general's madam must learn rituals, embroidery, and manner management. Are you using valuable time to draw these useless things? Kai wanted to burst out laughing at the man's sheer arrogance. Useless? This is art. General, do you know how much one of my paintings is worth? This entire manor might not afford a single piece. But he forced himself to hold back, switching to a placating strategy. Your wife only wished to use her talent to help the general reduce stress. Lucien slammed the sketchbook down onto the table. I do not need relaxation. Lyra, I need you to become the general's madam, fulfilling your duty and upholding the family's responsibilities. He was furious, but Kai clearly saw the confusion beneath the rigid facade. Lucien had never been analyzed and assessed so coldly, so talentedly, and so directly by anyone, let alone his own wife. Kai had indirectly shaken his defensive wall. Before Lucien could turn away, Kai asked a deeply suggestive question. General, if there comes a day when your duty and obligations conflict with what you truly desire, what will you choose? Lucien took a sharp, deep breath, his eyes staring into the void, full of sorrow, as if seeing the shadow of an old, cyclical tragedy. In the life of a general, there is no choice but loyalty to fate. Lyra, he answered, and then slammed the door shut. Kai sat down, picking up the sketchbook. He had achieved his goal. Lucien was not just a role, he was a soul under severe constraint. Kai took the charcoal and added a line of commentary beneath the general's portrait. Lucien, 30 years old. Emotional manipulation capability, superior. Cold charm, absolute. Ability to enjoy life, none. Kai gave a faint smile. The strategy had succeeded. This new understanding would help him not only survive but also prepare to bend the tragic script. Within the general's manor, Kai's appearance, even as a substitute, had inadvertently shaken the deep, hidden fractures. While Kai confronted Lucien with challenging art and words, Jasper wrestled with memory and the pain of being left behind. Jasper could never forget that fateful night. He had been Lyra's most loyal aide, but his secret love for her made him unable to accept her forced marriage to Lucien. Jasper, I don't want to. I want to be free. Lyra's desperate plea echoed incessantly in his mind. In that moment of tragedy, Lyra threw away the most important object, the protective jade gem that Jasper's father had given him. It was a small, hazy, crimson-purple gem that carried a sacred blessing. Give it to the one you truly love if you find them. Lyra, heartbroken by the forced abandonment of Jasper and the necessity of marrying Lucien due to heaven's decree, threw the gem into the river, yearning for release. Jasper knew that Lyra's desperate action had triggered the transition. The gem, symbolizing rejected true love, became the spatial conduit, sweeping her away and pulling Kai back. That evening, Jasper sought out Kai in the corner of the garden. He carried an old silk cloth, inside which lay Lyra's unfinished embroidery. Madam, Jasper called, his voice heavy with doubt and pain. That gem, you said it transformed into your hairpin, yes? Kai nodded. He reached up and touched the crimson-purple hairpin. It's like a destiny token. Jasper, it carries the breath of both worlds. Jasper stared intently. It was never meant to be mere jewelry. It is an object of incomplete love. My father said it would only glow when held by the one who found true love. He recounted the entire story to Kai. The secret love between himself and Lyra, the coercion of the marriage, and her final act of throwing the gem. Jasper spoke, tears streaming down his face. She didn't want to be the general's madam. She chose to break free from this fate. The gem helped her leave, and now it forces you to stay. Kai felt a profound empathy for Lyra. She wasn't a selfish runaway, she was a victim fighting for her freedom. He also grasped the painful truth. He was holding the conduit of a love that belonged to Lyra and Jasper. Jasper stepped closer, placing a hand on Kai's shoulder, his voice pleading, I know you are not Lyra, but now, you are the only link to her. I need to know, is she safe in your world? Kai closed his eyes, activating the hairpin with his thoughts. He wanted to find out what Lyra was doing in the modern world. This time, the bronze mirror did not appear. Instead, a fleeting image flashed in Kai's mind. Lyra was standing in his old art studio, reading the book, The Cardinal's Chronicle, with an eager, delighted expression. She was not in distress. She seemed to be enjoying her freedom and curiosity about the new world. Kai opened his eyes, gently telling Jasper, she is fine. She's in my home. and she seems to have found what she wanted. In that moment, Jasper realized his love for Lyra had been relegated to the past. He decided. The truth about the gem confirmed that Kai was the bridge. Their enemy was the book. The destiny, not each other. Jasper vowed to help Kai, not only to find Lyra but also to fight against the repetition of tragedy. Kai, who carried the token of rejected love, was the key to rewriting fate. Following the confrontations through words and exposed truths, with Jasper, Kai understood that he could not merely live as a passive substitute. He needed to influence Lucien, not through Lyra's deceit but through Kai's unique personality. Kai, with his modern knowledge and artist's aesthetic eye, began subtly intervening in Lucien's work. It all started with a stack of old military uniform designs. Lucien was struggling to improve the attire for his vanguard troops to increase their mobility. But he was constrained by rigid court regulations. Kai inadvertently saw the drafts while tidying the study. Kai could not resist. He took a brush and quickly sketched an overhaul. He didn't just draw, he applied knowledge of ergonomics and material science, flexibly translated to the ancient fabrics, of course. He adjusted the cut lines at the shoulders and hips, ensuring maximum comfort during movement while preserving the necessary solemnity. When Lucien returned, he saw the sketch, and his initial annoyance was instantly replaced by extreme astonishment. Who drew this? Lucien asked, his voice betraying a rare curiosity. Kai stepped out from the corner of the room, his expression calm. Your humble wife did. I thought performance was more important than formality in combat. The design needs to optimize movement. General. Lucien approached, holding the drawing. He realized these lines were not merely creative, they represented a deep understanding of the battlefield and the human body. The intelligence and distinctiveness of this new bride strangely resonated in Lucien's tough heart. My Lyra could never possess this sophistication. Lucien's thought arose, only to be immediately suppressed by his rewritten memory. The moment Kai leaned closer to point out a detail on the collar. An accidental mishap occurred. Lucien turned too quickly, and his elbow unintentionally struck Kai's cheekbone sharply. Thump. It was a minor collision, but enough to freeze both of them instantly. Kai clutched his cheek, looking up at Lucien with eyes welling up from the pain. The distance between them had suddenly narrowed. Kai could smell gunpowder, ink, and dried mint emanating from Lucien, a scent that was intensely masculine and dangerous. Lucien, who always controlled every emotion, was completely caught off guard. Are you all right? Lucien dropped the sketch, hastily reaching out. The rough finger of a warrior gently touched Kai's cheekbone. The unexpected softness of Kai's skin, combined with his confused and utterly genuine gaze, devoid of Lyra's pretense, struck Lucien's defenses. It was the first time Lucien had initiated physical contact with his madam, and also the first time he felt an invisible current run through him. Kai, equally flustered, felt Lucien's warm breath nearby. In that instant, he glimpsed the deep wound in Lucien's heart, an immense loneliness and a yearning for comprehension. Kai flinched, not out of fear, but because his artist's sensitivity recognized Lucien's tragic plight. Your wife is fine, Kai murmured. The general need not worry. Lucien quickly withdrew his hand, but his action was too late to reverse the change in his mind. He no longer saw Kai merely as a duty, but as a living entity, intelligent and dangerously distinct. Lucien lowered his voice, still serious but tinged with a rare softness. He decided to share the most painful truth. I married you because of a promise to my clan. I cannot allow this lineage to be punished for the old cycle of tragedy. My feelings, Lyra, cannot be yours, they are bound by heaven's decree. Kai listened, understanding clearly. Lucien did not love Lyra, he was merely loyal to fate. That blind loyalty was the cause of the tragedy. Kai looked at Lucien, his eyes full of profound understanding. Heaven's decree can bind the body, general, but true affection is free. In that moment, Kai had sown a seed of doubt about fate in Lucien's heart, simultaneously establishing a new connection that transcended the name Lyra and the initial deceit. Fate does not fear the truth, but it fears understanding. Kai, holding the key to that understanding, felt his entire body heat up. His intelligently unconventional behavior had stirred Lucien, but it simultaneously increased Kai's sense of foreboding. He knew well that every step off the predestined path carried a price. The memory of the bloody scarlet dream remained a cold warning. His mind was constantly driven, pulled toward the origin of this substitution. He had to confront the person who had used him, Lyra. In the dead of night, Kai silently approached the ancient bronze mirror in the room. The crimson-purple hairpin in his hair began to vibrate violently, emitting a piercing, buzzing sound that only his soul could hear. Like a dimensional door being unlocked, Kai closed his eyes, pouring all the will of an artist and the desperation of a captive into the hairpin, the artifact connecting the two souls. When he opened his eyes, the Jiaoyang reality vanished. The bronze mirror no longer reflected the ancient chamber, but Kai's own modern attic studio, filled with familiar colors and the smell of oil paint. Under the electric light, Lyra was standing there. The girl, in Kai's physical body, was wearing his t-shirt and jeans, her short hair adding a sharp, assertive edge. Lyra's face held the cruelly delighted curiosity of someone who had just completed a huge transaction. But underneath was subtle manipulation. So you finally deigned to look at me. Kai, have you started to feel my desperation yet? Lyra's voice resonated, not through sound waves, but through direct communion in Kai's mind, sharp and clear. Kai, in his ancient body, stared directly at his own face, a face now inhabited by another soul. He felt betrayed and furious. What are you doing in my body? And why did you push me into this horrific contract of fate? Kai demanded, his initial fear replaced by rage. Lyra smiled. The smile on Kai's face became wicked and foreign. She held the open book, the Cardinal's Chronicle, on the drawing table. Calm down, my friend, I didn't push you, I found an exit for myself. Look, Lyra pointed to the book. This chronicle is a 3-act play already written for Lyra. The end result is sacrifice for a fate I utterly rejected. I simply found the most talented substitute to continue. You have soul, so you must be the perfect replacement. You are playing my role. Kai, play it well. Lyra advanced toward the mirror, her eyes filled with challenge. This world, this romance, and even your own existence, it all lies within my unfinished painting. You must conclude it the way I escaped. You must conquer fate for both of us. Kai felt a chill run through his body. It turned out he was not a random victim, but a carefully selected tool chosen by Lyra. You are hurting innocent people. Lucien, Jasper, they are living in a lie. Kai shouted. Lyra shrugged, adopting Kai's own casual gesture. Innocent? Lucien chose destiny over love. Jasper chose conservatism over action. They are playing their parts too. As for you, Kai, you have the power to change the script. Don't just be the replacement. Look, the book is still open, you can draw the rest. Lyra pointed to a blank page in the book. Kai understood. Although the book set the framework, the details and emotions within were decided by the one playing the role. He gripped the hairpin tightly. The power to redraw destiny was now in his hands. The cross-dimensional communication abruptly ended. The crimson-purple light died out. The bronze mirror once again reflected Kai, standing with a stunned expression in his ancient attire. He knew the greatest performance had begun, and he could not retreat. After the cross-dimensional dialogue with Lyra, Kai realized the pressure from the court was intensifying. If Kai's anomaly was discovered, not only would he be implicated, but Lucien would also be penalized for breaking fate's decree and disgracing his clan. He was forced to accept the bride's role perfectly. That night, the general's manor hosted a small banquet to solidify General Lucien's status and introduce Madame Lyra to his trusted officials. This was Kai's largest stage yet. Kai, under the cold scrutiny of Lucien and the painful gaze of Jasper, made his entrance. He wore an intricately embroidered silk garment. Every step, every bow was executed with terrifying precision, as if he had memorized the rituals long ago. He was no longer the free-spirited artist Kai, but a captive monument of classical beauty. Lucien, standing beside Kai, also played the role of the exemplary groom. He touched Kai's hand, a stiff gesture, but enough to fool onlookers. Kai clearly sensed the artificiality in Lucien's every breath, yet that very fact made Kai more determined to play his part fully. The climax of the performance came when a high-ranking official offered a toast. The general and the madam are truly a match made in heaven. The madam is indeed a steadfast pillar of support for the general on the battlefield. Lucien offered a polite, social smile, but Kai, in a moment of strategic spontaneity, raised his wine cup, gently brushing Lucien's hand, an intimate gesture beyond what was necessary. The general is my soul. I am always willing to dedicate everything to uphold his career and safety. Heaven's decree has decided. We shall never part. This statement was both a public vow and a private message to Lucien, that Kai would protect him from the tragedy. The gesture caused Lucien to momentarily freeze. Kai's subtlety, combined with his perfectly chosen words, unsettled Lucien. Lucien's gaze shifted from vigilance to a perplexed surprise. However, the person most hurt was Jasper. He stood far off, serving wine and tea, watching this performance of false intimacy with a tearing heart. Kai was playing the role of his rival's lover, using Lyra's very appearance to deceive the entire world. Jasper could bear it no longer. He left the great hall and waited for Kai in the desolate corridor. When Kai escaped the encirclement of the officials, Jasper intercepted him, his face white with anguish. Your acting is too brilliant. Madam, Jasper whispered, his voice laced with bitterness. Every gesture, every word is a lie. Yet it convinces everyone. You might deceive Lucien, you might deceive the court, but you cannot deceive me. Jasper clenched his fists, his eyes filled with the anguish of betrayed love. You used her very body to seduce the man she vowed to flee from. You are stealing not just her physical form, but her destiny as well. Kai looked directly into Jasper's pain, not flinching. He understood the suffering of this memory keeper. I am not stealing, Jasper, I am salvaging. Kai replied, his voice heavy with fatigue and determination. You saw Lyra, she has found her freedom. If I don't play this part, the old tragedy will repeat with Lucien, and the chronicle will never end. Kai placed his hand on his chest, where the crimson-purple token resided. I know, but some relationships don't come to an end, they come to a completion. And my mission is to complete it the way Kai would, not Lyra. This assertion struck Jasper hard. He realized Kai was not just a substitute, but the bearer of the tragedy that Lyra had evaded. The thread between Jasper and Lyra was severed, and Kai was forging a new bond with Lucien, a bond that could salvage everything. The performance of false affection was over, but it opened the door for a deeper spiritual convergence. Kai, after declaring his mission was to complete the destined thread, was plunged into increasingly intense cycles of reincarnation dreams. The dream of the bloody wedding night reappeared, but this time Kai saw more clearly. The person in the scarlet robe was a man, and his lover was a close court official. Their forbidden love was discovered by the court, ending in a crimson-purple stained massacre. Kai woke up, drenched in a cold sweat. He realized Lyra's substitution wasn't just an escape, it was the recurrence of an ancient tragedy. He, a young modern artist, was the uncompleted fragment of a soul from that tragedy, pulled back to play the lover's role, under the guise of the bride, to the descendant. Kai needed the truth from Lucien. He sought Lucien in the study. Lucien was examining a faded scroll. He had begun to soften toward Kai. His differences in intellect made it impossible for Lucien to maintain his previous rigid composure. General, Kai stepped forward, his voice heavy with the dream's weight. Do you know of any reincarnation curse on your lineage? Or an ancient love tragedy, connected to the color crimson purple? Lucien froze. The scroll in his hand dropped to the floor. He looked at Kai with intense vigilance and an unreadable terror. How do you know these things? Lucien advanced, his voice hoarse, filled with subtle threat. Kai knew he had hit the core issue. He pointed to the crimson-purple hairpin on his hair, now the token. It shows me, a tragedy happened generations ago, and it is waiting to repeat itself. Lucien sighed, his resistance vanishing, replaced by resignation and sorrow. He bent down, picked up the scroll, and slowly unrolled it. It was an ancient painting, depicting a man in a scarlet robe and his lover, whose features bore a striking resemblance to Kai and Lucien. This is the cyclical tragedy of the Lucien clan. Lucien said, his voice deep with sorrow. Every few generations, someone in our lineage falls in love with the wrong person, and the outcome is always blood and the crimson-purple light. My ancestors vowed to marry for duty to break this loop. My marriage to Lyra was loyalty to that vow. Lucien looked at Kai, his gaze both distant and intimate. Don't you see, Lyra, I cannot choose. If I love you the way I want to, I will personally trigger the tragedy, and the court will exterminate my clan. Kai understood. Lucien was not heartless. He was a man trying to sacrifice love to protect his family from fate. In that very moment, Kai's token, the hairpin, suddenly glowed, emanating a gentle warmth. Kai realized the object was not just a conduit, it was also a source of healing energy for the tragedy. Lucien gazed at the crimson-purple light surrounding Kai. He was no longer afraid, but intensely drawn. That light, despite being the color of tragedy, emanated from Kai, who brought understanding, not despair. "I am not Lyra," Kai whispered, uttering the raw truth. "I am Kai, from another world, here to redraw your tragedy. I refuse to let it repeat." This confession, though not the full truth about the book, was the truth of Kai's feelings and intentions. Lucien, no longer able to resist Kai's distinctness and the coincidence of reincarnation, stepped closer. He reached out and touched Kai's face. "I don't know who you are, Kai or Lyra, but I know I am having feelings for you that I shouldn't." Lucien admitted, his voice full of pain. The cycle of fate was complete. Kai and Lucien now faced the truth that their love was the biggest threat to the court and the clan's destiny. The revelation of the true name and the cyclical tragedy pushed Kai and Lucien into a point of no return. Lucien's feelings for Kai were so intense they bordered on desperation, for it meant he was betraying his ancestral vow. Kai understood that by continuing to be Lyra, he would activate the bloody ending the book was waiting for. He had to be Kai, the one who redrew fate. Kai sought out Jasper. The meeting took place at the small bridge where the fateful gem had fallen into the river. Kai's choice, for Jasper, was confirmation of his own lost love. "Jasper," Kai said, his voice determined, "I will stay in Zhaoyang. I cannot be Lyra to complete the tragedy. I will be Kai, using this conduit, the hairpin, to interfere with Lucien's reincarnation." Jasper nodded, his eyes melancholic but respectful. He understood that Kai was shouldering the tragedy that Lyra had evaded. "You have chosen the path that resists the invisible force," Jasper admitted. "You have chosen real love over release." Together, they secretly searched for the origin of the Cardinal's Chronicle. Through ancient documents and confidential letters in the manor, they discovered with horror that the book was the product of a reincarnation guardian force obsessed with tragedy. It did not just record, it compelled souls to repeat painful fates to achieve what it defined as a perfect ending. Love must end in sacrifice. Kai declared, "The book wants blood. I will give it a different picture of the ending." Just as Kai reached his highest resolve, a strange letter appeared. It was slipped under Kai's door, written in red ink on modern paper. The handwriting shaky but hurried. The sender was not Lyra, but a fifth character caught in the tragedy. The content of the letter was like a sentence passed down. "The substitute has willfully altered the plot. The chronicle has automatically moved to the final chapter. The cardinal has returned. The cycle is about to close with blood. You cannot escape. The general must die for the tragedy to be completed." Simultaneously, in the study, Lucien was agonizingly reading an urgent summons from the emperor. The order commanded Lucien to lead troops on a reckless campaign into a volatile war zone. This was a near-suicidal mission, arranged abnormally by the court. Lucien understood, it wasn't just a duty, but the intervention of fate, compelling him to die honorably on the battlefield rather than live disgracefully by loving the substitute and breaking the cycle's vow. That evening, Kai walked into the study, holding the chilling warning letter. Lucien gripped the campaign command token, his face etched with heartbreaking resolution. They looked at each other. Words were unnecessary. They both understood that the guardian force had set the trap, and the final chapter had begun. Kai, with the determined gaze of an artist committed to fixing a flawed masterpiece, spoke clearly. "This is not a mission. Lucien, this is a sentence. Will you sacrifice yourself for your ancestors' responsibility, or live for your own true love?" Lucien closed his eyes, feeling the crimson-purple hairpin on Kai's hair radiating warmth, a stark contrast to the coldness of the command token in his hand. End of Part 1. The choice was laid bare, and the war against destiny was about to commence.